Hello, here's a slingshot.
Woohoo!
So I wanted to talk about and bring up estrangement um, and what a lot of people are experiencing with estrangement with friends, family. A lot of things have happened in the last couple of years where these are things that are um, the splitting apart of people. We see it in our politics and countries and alliances, and on a bigger picture, this is something that in our own lives we're experiencing possibly estrangement in more internal ways where we're transferring from what we thought of ourselves in identity aspects as our role or different personas. And as we shed these personas and we step into just being who we are, the self is now taking stage, so to speak. And I just was seeing how estrangement is a part of um, the weaving of how that comes about for each of us, because we have to be estranged or pushing away from something in order to um, shift a perspective. It's kind of like shifting your feet on the ground. You're facing one direction, then all of a sudden you shift and your view is completely different. This is kind of the same thing with the relationships that we've had with ourselves or with other people that are now estranged. And I just thought that would be a good little slingshot.
Very cool. Yeah. I've seen a lot of it in my life, and I've seen a lot of it going on. And it's, a lot of times it has to do with, roles that we no longer want to participate in, and we start to change our persona and who we are, and our personality changes, and we're not interested. It can be looking at as, it isn't that we don't want those things, it's that we want this other thing. We want to figure out who we truly are instead of figuring out what kind of father I am or what kind of mother I am or cousin or whatever role it is. And what ends up happening is that you have agreements with people that you've created, and now that we're in a changing dynamic when people are choosing to look at the world differently, to look at themselves differently, we start to see that separation. And as that separation happens, then estrangement can happen. And it was interesting because I had a vision about being above that, and being to the point where it's kind of like there is something about, okay, it's necessary to push this thing out of my life right now. Mm-hmm. But there's also this other point where you just can be. And I guess the example that came in this vision was that somebody, let's say that you're having an interaction with somebody that is very familiar. And let's say that they are pushing against whatever it is that you're becoming. Mm-hmm. So they're maybe judging you or telling you who you should be. And oftentimes that creates like, oh no, that's not me. Don't say that, or that isn't who I am. It's like, and then there just gets to be a point where you don't have to fight. You don't have to talk somebody else into your other thing. It's like, if that person said something, you can just say, okay, that's a thing. That's where you're going. And, unless they can lead you down to exactly what they want, but that's usually, people don't know exactly what they want. And so what they do is they try to zing you and find out then like where they've got you, and then to try to use that push against you. And there can be a point where you just don't have that push against anymore, where it's like Somebody might ask you if you want to be in a fight, and you might just be able to say, oh, no, I'm not interested in doing that. And so, yeah, it's kind of a painful thing, that we're seeing this, these separating, there's these big divides politically in our culture, that's dividing families and dividing friendships. And, and then there can be, I guess what I'm speaking to now is like that kind of hopelessness, is that there is really hope at the end of the sun, but it's always where you come from.
Right.
And I would say that the most powerful place you can come from is not taking it personally. And just letting whatever comes, it's like, oh, okay, that's what you think. That's your thing. That's okay.
And I guess that I was kind of wanting to add a positive aspect, or when we start reviewing our estrangement that we're experiencing, to kind of look at it with a positive thought area or space, bring it into wow, I am experiencing estrangement. This is a positive thing because I'm growing. And so you can use it as a tool or as a marker for yourself that this is part of your growing path, and you can look at it from a positive way.
Yeah, that's really good. I like that. And the way that I would see that is that in estrangement, there's going to be multiple levels of emotions that are going to come up from that. The first might be relief, that you're not having to deal with the anxiety of the other person. You're not having to deal with the role that their expectations. So there's this beautiful release, and you're just like, I'm so free. But then there's this moment, these other moments when you recall the closeness that you had, the things that you used to share in the past, and then all of a sudden you're grieving and you're having this kind of sense. And what Chelsea was saying is that it's not a matter of just trying to be positive. Right. It's actually just acknowledging change, acknowledging that something's happened. When you feel these emotional shifts, our minds want to try to figure out how to fix that, because it's like, I have this emotion I don't want to feel, or I have this emotion I want to feel more of. And it's like, no, just sit with it all. And it's a matter just of acknowledging that if that's happening, you're changing and you're shifting. So it's not really it is a positive, because you are you're shifting into a positive frame of mind, but it's not a matter of trying to be positive, if you can understand that distinction.
I was kind of more feeling the way, like as an example, with my mother, this estrangement, going through those grief, going through those types of feelings, it all fine, but keeping it as more of a positive marker is that I was able to then go into deeper understanding of my own codependencies that I had with her, expectations that I had with her. And so those were things that were waiting for me to give attention to be able to hold and not suppress or ignore or avoid. And so that's kind of where I was wanting to point it as a positive, for being able to then go in and say, what have I been pushing on to this relationship? What part have I been playing into this relationship? And how do I relate with this person? That I don't know. It's part of that, knowing yourself, knowing your own self deeply.
Yeah, and I guess what brought, from what you just shared, brought up the idea that when we have these emotions, when you were talking about, and you're going through these experiences, the thing is your mind will want to grab on to, oh, I can analyze the other person. This is what they're lacking. This is my psychology. Come up with different terms, blah, 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 blah. And my point is that when we begin to look at our own awareness, that's all we are doing, is looking at our own awareness and saying, oh, okay, my mind is just trying to put this all together. It's trying to stack value of who's good, who's right, who's wrong. And the positive part of that is just to go, oh, this is what my mind's trying to do. And what I want to focus on is my own shift and my own change, because that's the only thing that we can do. We cannot come up with, and that's what I know my mind used to be ferocious at this, was trying to work the other person's point of view and my point of view. And what I have come to know is I had no chance. There is no chance of working it from both people's perspective. It's about being your own tether, your own foundation, and coming from that. Mm-hmm. And so that's what will happen is when we're lost in our emotions, that's cool. Like it's okay. Mm-hmm. Because that's what ends up happening is that when these constructed agreements start to get pulled apart, it starts to pull on us, and it's going to pull on all these identities and
yes.
The roles and everything else,
yes.
and it's going to pull all those things apart. Well, how do we put those all back together? We always have to be in, I can only do my work. Mm-hmm. And another way, this is kind of an intense way to say it, but whenever I was doing the other person's work for them, that was me trying to play God.
Yeah.
Like that's literally me trying to work and solve the problems from an omniscient point of view, which you don't have. Mm-hmm. And it isn't fair. That other person is having their own subjective reality.
Exactly.
And that is a lightening when I can go, oh, they're experiencing their own thing. And this is what they want to experience. Yes. And it might be that they want to experience suffering. And that's what they're putting together is the greatest suffering story ever. And they want you to be involved with it. And maybe you don't want to be involved with that story. And it's like, well, and then you're like, oh, wait a minute, I can help them. And it's like, no, you can't help them. They have to want the other thing. So the only way that we can do it is to become the most beautiful aspect of ourselves. Mm-hmm. And that's all we can do. And from that point of view, somebody make a different choice, and that's how we're all interrelated. But it comes down to, we always have to be going 100% me, 100% me, 100% me,
yes.
100% me, yes. 100% me, 100% me. And no matter how many times you say it, your mind will still try to work the other person's point of view. And it's like, no, you just got to let go of that point of view. And yeah, so this was kind of a fun slingshot. So we just started it with Chelsea suggesting it. I had forgotten what the suggestion was. And so we just decided to start it and then just work it from a conscious level. And I felt like it was fun.
Yeah, it was great.
Did you feel good about it?
Yeah, I do.
Excellent.
See you next time.
See you next time. Ha ha!